been a while since we've thrown any videos up on Hangout with High Jumpers, but a good buddy of mine from the 90s and early 2000s, Steve Smith from Liverpool, England, superstar of track and field athletics in the 90s and early 2000s, is with us today. And I wanted to ask him a couple of questions about, in particular, what he's learned about high performance, about ingredients for success from the world of sport, which he now applies to your life. You know, what can we really take from it in terms of the big picture and overcoming adversity and, you know, achieving your goals? What did you learn from sport that you now apply to raise the bar?
Nice to be here. I mean, I have to admit, you know, the sports side in business was something that we focused on some time ago, but it's not. Sports just a great metaphor. You know, it's a metaphor for just thinking kind of in a black or white way about performance. You know, because the bar stays on, the bar falls to the ground. Yeah, you know, you win, you lose. You know, it's a foul, it's not a foul. You know, there's less gray areas, so it enables you to think in a different way. But there's lots of things in life that do that. You know, there's lots of different inspirations out there. Sports just one of them. So, you know, for a while we used that as a metaphor, but now, you know, we draw on just successful people, role modeling. You know, what makes us, you know, a growth mindset, an ability to take feedback. You know, an ability to be competitive, ability to be resilient. You know, an ability to be visual, get out, make an impact. You know, all of these things are not exclusive to sport. So we use that in our training programs, and I'm lucky to draw on you know, a short career that I had in athletics to help me with that.
Yeah, and it was a great career. You mentioned feedback, and it's something that is obviously a very sensitive topic, and it's a loaded topic because with the ego that goes with athletes very often, you know, it takes a very courageous character to say, you know, what's wrong? How can I improve? Even if, I mean, in a country like Ireland, you might think you're doing well winning a national championship, but be very mediocre by European or global standards. So what would you advise to somebody who has a growth mindset, but is just a bit sensitive about the whole feedback and soliciting negative feedback in particular?
I mean, that's difficult. That is a mindset. You know, a lot of it depends on the people that you surround yourself with. You know, if you feel as though, and the agendas that people have. But on the whole, you know, there's a small percentage of people who have the wrong agenda. So I would say, rather than focus on the people with the wrong agenda, focus on the people with the right agenda. Ask questions. You know, I constantly ask questions. You know, I want to know how people have done it, where they've, you know, what were the moments in their life that were turning points for them. You know, what were, and I'm not just talking about athletics, I'm talking about in general. You know, you're never good enough. You will never be perfect. You will never reach perfection. So if you're always striving towards that, you can always learn. Feedback is a tough one, but you know, if you have a support around you, then, and the right people giving it to you, then it's crucial.
You mentioned the people you surround yourself with. Sometimes people find themselves inadvertently, maybe even family or your next door neighbor, some, you know, childhood friend who's been by your side for many, many years, and they're finding, as they become more mature as an adult, that maybe that person isn't a good influence. Now that could even be your parents. You know, what's your experience with that? You know, just shifting your environment. It's a lot easier said than done.
Again, you know, I don't have a lot of experience about that. You know, I think you have to trust the gut. You know, it depends on the environment that you choose to put yourself in. If it feels negative, then only you can make the decision to pull yourself out of it. Yeah, you know, but you have to be open to other people's opinions. You know, and you have to have the ability to choose ultimately, you know, what your direction is going to be. Life is short. Yeah, you know, it was only yesterday I was jumping over a bar in the Olympic Games. You know, now I'm baldy, and you know, I'm talking to you in Sydney. You know, it happens in an instant. You know,
how did it happen? Can you tell us? Yeah, because a lot of people don't know about Raise the Bar. Great analogy and the origins of it. Can you tell us quickly how it grew from your sport to a business?
Yeah, so for me, I retired when I was 26. Yeah, so the last time I competed competitively was when I was 26. So and I had a lot of injuries the last couple of years, so I didn't, it wasn't exactly a lucrative time in my life. So I moved into the restaurant world, had a restaurant in Liverpool, which was a great learning curve. Anybody who's an entrepreneur or a business person who goes into that world will understand a lot of the challenges that come with it, from understanding how a business works, customer service, break even, cash flow, all that type of good stuff. Yeah. But it wasn't really for me. So I met with my current business partner, John Constanga, who was doing a lot of personal development, and we decided that we'd do something together, something that would inspire people and something that would make a difference and help people reach their potential in any walk of life. So we set up Raise the Bar in 2004. We have about 50 staff working nationally. We work for some of the UK's biggest brands, and yeah, it's interesting times. So we're a long way in, but but yeah, you just learn by experience. You learn from putting yourself out there. You use the high jump analogy. You attack the bar, the bar fails. You fail quickly. You come back you get the feedback. You understand what you've done wrong. What do you need to do differently? Go at it again. Go at it again. Same in business. Business. Any entrepreneur will tell you got to fail fast. You got to fail fast. What sport gives you the ability to do is remove the emotion from that, because with failure comes a lot of emotion. Yeah, you let yourself down, you let your parents down, you let your coach down, you let your country down, whatever that is. But ultimately, when you're on the in the high jump fan and the bar's fallen, there can be an emotion. But as long as you don't continue to do the same thing over and over again, and you learn from it, you take the feedback, you try something different, you learn how to go clear, and then surprise, the bar gets lifted up by 5 centimeters, and you go through the same process. That's life. Yeah. The bar never stays the same. You wouldn't work for a large corporate organization and they set you a target of, I don't know, £10,000 year one. They're not guaranteed your target year two is going to be 11,000. So you just have to reassess, go at it again, learn from it, come back stronger.
That's right. Adversity, Steve. I'm just wondering, is there any particular presentations or speakers or audiences who've illuminated important messages about overcoming adversity? Again, we have an audience of people who probably spent over a year in lockdown in Ireland and the UK, who had serious challenges just to keep fit, keep healthy, keep sane. And, in comparison to some of the speaker stories I'm guessing you've witnessed, these are relatively mild complaints, but what have you learned about adversity from Raise the Bar?
I would recommend anybody to read a book called The Chin Paradox. Chin Paradox is by a psychiatrist called Professor Steve Peters, who works a huge amount in sports. I suppose made his name with the British cycling team.
The Chin Paradox.
The Chin Paradox, yeah.
Okay, cool.
So Steve worked with psychopaths, killers, ran Rampton Hospital for over 20 years and brings academic research into the world of sport. But he has a very, very simple model that makes it easy for us to understand. And the crux of that model is understanding how we control our emotional brain. And that's one of the keys to resilience, how we think in a logical, rational way about things and not how we think in an emotional, jumping to conclusions, out of control way, catastrophic way about things. Because when things go against you, you tend to go on a catastrophic downward spiral. He describes that as a part of your brain that, you need to manage, but you need to get to a place where you can use the logical, rational part of your brain on a more consistent basis. The challenge at lockdown is our emotional needs aren't met yet. Things like safety, things like value, things like being in control, all these things are gone. So, our emotional brain starts to scream out that things are going wrong. And that's one of the challenges with resilience. So I think that's a great book. I've just given a very small paragraph from the book, and Steve will probably kill me for doing that because I don't do it justice. But what I would say is that it's a great book, and it's got stuff in sport or outside of sport. Some of the world's greatest performers have used Steve. So yeah, that's where I would go for resilience, I think.
Fantastic. I love that theme of developing awareness of your own thoughts, thinking about your thinking. I mean, it's pretty deep, but there's been a lot of talk about psychology on this forum. Even Sotomayor talked about the work the work he did with visualization, particularly when he was injured. Interestingly, I know Steve Backley did that as well. When he was injured, he did a lot of work with sports psychologists. Confidence, Steve, the origin of confidence. Any tips, techniques, or any learnings about confidence you could share?
Look, it comes back down to mindset. A lot of the same things go. You get confidence from trying things, from failing, from coming back and then achieving it. Confidence comes with experience. Confidence comes with experience of putting yourself outside of your comfort zone and knowing that actually you've come through. And you don't do that unless you step outside of your comfort zone. So again, going back to this theme about resilience, about confidence, ultimately it's all about mindset. It's all about mindset. So you can, I always say, you can be the best in the gym, you can be the best on the track, in training. You can have the best nutrition, the best team, but unless that works for you, then it's not. You're not going to achieve your potential, because it will guarantee to work against you. So that's where confidence comes from. And I was thinking about things like confidence as I was thinking about this session, and trying to get myself back into the mindset of when I competed. And that's quite difficult, because it was such a long time ago. Yeah. But I always remember, I never believed it was over until I stepped off the bed, and that third attempt where I failed, and I knew the bar was on the floor. Regardless of how awful my attempts were at any point of the competition, I still believed I could achieve a personal best in that competition. The reason for that is because it's happened before. I've gone into competitions and I haven't cleared height in warm-up. I've come into the competition and I've cleared my opening height, scraped over at my final attempt. I've then scraped over my next height of my final attempt. And I'm thinking this is going to be awful, but it turns around. You find the mechanisms, you find the things that give you confidence, and you do those things. And if you've got those routines of those things that you can do, then you've got a chance of bringing it back. But, you have to believe that, you can turn it around. And for me, there was a lot of competitions. I think probably my first one came from European Junior Championships in Thessaloniki. I think I won those at 2:29. But I think I can't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure I entered the competition at 2:15. And
wow. You were 17 at the time, were you? You
17.
You still had another year junior, because was
18,
that
1990?
Was
91, yeah.
Right.
I'm pretty sure I entered the competition at 2:15 and I scraped over my third attempt.
Oh, wow.
But I went on to win it, and you look back and you go, well, you know what? I know that, and if that can happen, I know that any competition can turn around. Any competition can turn around, because I've never felt that bad, at the outset. It's that type of feeling.
Yeah, I always remember Mike Holmes, your old coach, talking about this incredible mindset you enjoyed as an athlete. And, sometimes, you might say it can be trained and learned, but some people seem to just have it. They're either born with it, or it was conditioned into them from their family or early life experiences. But he said that when you saw a bar being raised, it was almost an entitlement that you clear it, and you almost looked at the bar objectively as, causing offense if it was to fall down. It was like you were almost entitled to clear the damn bar. So this incredible appetite for the challenge, for the bar to be raised, that was quite a unique mindset.
I just enjoyed it, I enjoyed the challenge, and again, I could have a really poor training session, and I think Michael probably remember this. We'd I'd go at 2:10, and I'd be failing off 5 strides, failing, let's go 2:15. I might go clear once, then 2:20, and then fail. But I wouldn't leave the track without going clear. But what we would do is, before I left, is I might have been failing at 2:20. But for the last jump, I'd put it up by 3 centimeters, so it kind of raised that mindset. So yeah, the challenge of that is just good fun. It's naive, good fun. I always remember, again, just a few memories kind of come back. In my first Olympics in Barcelona, I was, none of the big guys, I kind of guess, really knew who I was, because I think I had a best of 2:32. I never competed against them much, but I was on a warm-up track leading 2:30. And, you know, I was telling the guys about it, and I always remember and because I loved it. Yeah. There was no agenda. I was just going, God, isn't this incredible? I've just cleared 230 in training, that type of thing. Yeah. You know, and I'd tell Hollis and I'd tell Charles and Dalton, and I'm sure they were going, yeah, great, brilliant. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. That made up, you know, thinking, who's this guy who's now, you know, in the form of his life, you know, the last thing we need. But it's just a naivety of enjoying competition, enjoying, you know, me against the bar type thing. So.
Yeah. What about when you were 15, 16, 17, just getting into it, did they have that indoor facility at Wavertree,
Yeah.
that shed? They had that. Yeah, you didn't have to resort to the outdoors. And yeah, because I know in Ireland and Liverpool, it can be very windy, very rainy, you know, for 9 months of the year.
Yeah, we had it, which was a godsend. Yeah, you know, it was great. I mean, okay, you know, I had to wait until, you know, you going out to the Atlanta Games, and you had to wait until, you know, all the kids that get off the high jump area before you could train. You know, and you know, you dictated by everybody else, which is fine. Yeah, you know, that's just one of those things. That's the way sport was back then. There's no high performance centers and all that type of stuff. But it also enabled you to adapt. And what I mean by adapting, not adapting to the times that you train, but adapting your technique. So there was times where, you know, you remember that you're running down a tight wall. You know, there's only a certain amount of space that you can fit in. You run up. You know, there might be somebody else training behind or whatever. So you've got to, you know, got all these things kind of going on. And ultimately, you go too far to the left and your foot's in the high jump pit. You know, you jump too far and you hit the wall. You know, it's that kind of thing. So actually, you don't become so obsessed. I don't feel as that I was that obsessed by my run up. You know, I think that gave me a far more natural approach that I was able to change and adapt that as and when I needed to do it. So I had a good level of self-awareness about just where I needed to be at the last couple of strides rather than the rest of it. It's obviously really important, but you know, the wind might blow, or, you know, the rain might come in, or, you know, you might be feeling different in a different place. So you need to have that adaptability and not be so obsessive about, you know, well, what happens if I'm 2 centimeters out on my fourth stride? Yeah. Well, who cares? Just make sure you're not 2 centimeters out on your last stride. You know, that's kind of where I would approach things.
I found a lot of people who miss the target, not particularly in sport, but in life, you know, relationships, business, whatever, tend to lose sight of the critical success factors of anything they're doing in terms of the Pareto principle. You know, the way, you know, they say that 20% of the contributing factors to success are from, or so 80% of the success factors are from 20% of the input. If you were to apply that to your high jumping days, and this is my only high jumping question, what would you say would be the top 2 or 3 critical success factors? I mean, holistically speaking.
First one was clearing the bar.
That helps for sure. Before you get to that point, and I know you guys were famous for a generous recovery, and a lot of people don't recover very well, but, you know, a lot of coaches would have you make a list and say, okay, what for you are the most important things? Agility, speed, strength, you know, competition, you know, make a list. Is there any couple of outstanding ingredients for high performance Olympic athletics for you that you think maybe other lesser mortals may not have employed so well?
I think I always think mental approach was a key one, you know, without banging on about that. But I think, you know, for me, I grew up as an all-rounder. You know, okay, you know, look at me, I'm not a thrower, right? I'm certainly not a decathlete. But
yeah,
you know, I had the confidence that, you know, I jumped 762 or 760, I think it was, in long jump. So, you know, I was kind of, and I know I could have been an 8 meter long jumper, definitely could have been. But I didn't really train that much at it. I could have been a great triple jumper as well. But I loved that all-round side of sport. You know, I enjoyed hurdles. You know, I would remember one of the guys at the track in Liverpool when I came back from, you know, Atlanta with a bronze medal, and he said to me, you know, I still think you should be a hurdler. I was kind of going, okay. So you know, the all-round nature of, you know, looking for different things to get a buzz from, you know, it's not all about high jump. And you know, one of the things where, you know, you talk about the rest element, and that's important in terms of, you know, rest and recovery from from hard training sessions and winter sessions and stuff, and and so that you find your form. What's also important as well is not jumping for a long time. Doing other things, getting that general conditioning. So, going, months sometimes without actually jumping, because, you come back to it fresh. It's like when, I always play golf better when I haven't played for a while, because I appreciate it so much more. I concentrate so much more. I love it so much more because it's not, part of my everyday life.
Yeah, I've had a good year-long break from golf now. I'm really,
You'll be awesome when you
really
go back.
looking
You'll be
forward.
awesome.
I'm chomping at the bit. Yeah, look, I don't mean to be negative in any way, but one of the things I would change if I could jump into that idealistic time machine is I'd take a year out, right around the peak of my efforts, but sometime between 16 and 26, I would take a full year out and just completely walk away with a view to maybe coming back. I kind of regret I didn't do that because I was full on committed between the age of 13 and when I quit high jump, I quit at 25. But I was mentally exhausted. I would say burnt out because I took it very seriously as a teenager. And I don't think that was healthy. So my point is, I fully agree with you. Stepping back as a means to going forward, or even just to completely unplug, disengage for 12, even 18 months, I think is a great thing.
Look, sport's tough. Sport is tough. It's one of those that you have a choice. You probably, I would describe my career as, all out. I had the rest and stuff, but you know what, ultimately a crash and burn. Never really achieved my potential, I don't think, because, I should have had more years and stuff. But that's sport is not easy. I get up in the morning, I get up every morning and I crawl out of bed. My back, my Achilles. It takes
today.
Yeah. I mean,
people don't talk about that.
I mean, it takes me. I'm literally. Sorry, I'm exaggerating, crawl. Yeah, but I am like an old man. I'm like an old man.
I can totally relate to that. My back is shot to pieces. My knees. I had surgery a few weeks ago.
Yeah. So
you pay a price.
That's an important balance to find. Can you achieve at the highest level without pushing yourself to those limits? Right. I don't have the answer to that. I don't know. But that's a personal choice that you take, both mentally and physically, of whether you do that. And then going back to your point, do you have, when life is when your sport career is so short, if the only way of achieving it is to really push those boundaries and put yourself in those positions, then can you take a year out? Will you ever come back? It's everything comes down to choices. It's the choices that we take all the time. We look back, hindsight's a wonderful thing and all that type of stuff, but it's your choice in that moment. A choice that I made probably finished my career. I tried to come into the World Championships at 2.37 meters. With all due respect, what type of knobhead does that, right?
Dalton Grant would do that, but I'm not calling him a knobhead, but he was famous for coming in at 2:30s.
Yeah, I mean, I came in at 2:29, which is fine, but I was interested.
I don't remember that. You opened with a 2:37 attempt. Where?
In Seville.
Wow.
World Championships 99.
Oh my God! What happened?
I didn't clear it.
Oh, right.
Well, actually, I think it might have been 35 2 attempts and then 1 attempt at 37. Yeah,
right. That was because of an injury or something.
Yeah, I my Achilles. That was the precursor to my Achilles rupture. In qualification, my Achilles had pulled.
Right.
We were pretty sure that it wouldn't rupture, but I had 3 jumps. I shouldn't have took those 3 jumps. Shouldn't have took them. But you know what? Right. That's your choice that you make. Yeah. You know what? Mm-hmm. So you look back and you go, maybe not the right choice, but it is what it is. That's
in terms of resourcefulness, Steve, how important do you think it is for an athlete to be brave, bold, courageous in terms of their networking, to find a really talented physio of the caliber of Neil Black, I think was the guy back in your day, Gerard Hartman, these kind of guys. I mean, for me, I think it's part of the whole ingredients for success is your ability to build that team, to get in front of these guys, to leverage the talents of other people to achieve your goals. And that's resourcefulness. It's really, really hard, don't you think?
Again, it's another life lesson. You need to work hard to get people on your team. You need to surround yourself with people who are better than you, who will make the right choices, the right decisions, and trust their expertise. And that is a networking thing. That's a it's a critical success factor in again for us. If I think about to Neil, who's unfortunately no longer with us, which is tragic. But Neil, I stayed at Neil's house. He had a very successful clinic. His first patient in the morning was 7:30. Well, that didn't stop him seeing me at 6:30. Wow. The last patient was 7 o'clock. That didn't stop him treating me at home at his house. When we got in at 8 o'clock. Because the funding and stuff wasn't there, that he was full-time in athletics. So those type of commitments that people around you make. And Gerard's, another great example, going over to stay at his house in Florida and the commitment that he made and, all that type of stuff. And so you've got to find a way of making that happen and getting people to work on your team towards your goal, because otherwise they'll just work for somebody else. Yeah. And again, that's another analogy for I suppose for business. And there's always been a thing that we talk about, mastermind alliance, getting the right people around you, and all that good stuff, all those cliches around, if you're the smartest people in the room, then smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room. Yeah. You know what? Because we don't, you need to find people that are better than you. Not necessarily on the track. That's your job. Yeah. Jumping over the bar is your job. But it's not your job to be a great physio, to be a great nutritionist, to be a great coach, to be a great agent, to be a great kit man, to be,
That's it. It's not easy. Steve, you've been very generous with your time. I really appreciate it. I'm going to knock off the recording. But any final message you want to make to young athletes and their coaches, maybe parents back in Munster, Ireland? I'll let you have the final word of the recorded part.
I would just say, look, you've got to enjoy it. Don't take it so seriously. You've got to smile. It's amazing when you stand there. That's another thing when I talked about those elements of where I was in a competition and down, and you stand there and you smile, it changes things. So you enjoy the battle, you enjoy the success, you enjoy the failure, that the overall piece, and don't be too obsessive about certain things. Ultimately, there's lots of different ways to get to where you need to get to. And I'm talking about lots of different ways to have a run up. For me, it was sometimes I'd do 5 strides, sometimes I'd do 7 strides, sometimes I'd do 9 strides, sometimes I'd do more work in the gym, sometimes I wouldn't. Sometimes I'd run at a faster pace. I'd have a different technique one year to another. You're always trying different things. But if you stuck to one thing, being rigid, then, you're probably going to struggle. It's about adaptability as well. So adaptability and enjoyment is probably, one of the big things that I'd say, and, in wishing people the best of luck.
Fantastic, Steve. Really appreciate it. I'm going to hit the off button, but I'll speak to you for a couple of minutes. Stop cloud recording.